Alright, this is Chapter 3, Chapter Test C. This is your review. I'm going to do this a little differently for you all. I have a feeling most of the honor students that are looking at this know how to do the steps, especially if I just show you what I've done. So I'm going to run through and I'll pay careful attention on the word problems, but for the most part I'm just going to show you what I've already done. So starting with numbers 1 through 4. Notice on number 1, all I did was multiply by the reciprocal. We never divide by fractions. On number 2, I added 14.7 to both sides. Now on number 3, you'll notice I got rid of the fractions. You don't have to do it this way. I prefer to do it this way. I don't really care to use fractions. It's a little bit harder for me. So I multiplied every single term by 8 because that's the LCD, or the least common denominator, between 8, 1, and 4. When I did that, I got 5 minus 8y equals 6. Subtract the 5, divide by negative 8. This will work just as well if you subtract 5/8 from both sides and then divide by negative 1. Number 4, I added 3 to both sides, then multiplied by the reciprocal, 12 over 7, giving me x equals 12. Number 5, once again, I cleared the fractions first. Don't care to work with them, I make more mistakes. So I multiplied each number, each term, by 3, giving me 9 equals 1 minus 6b. I then subtracted 1 and divided by negative 6, giving me negative 4/3. Make sure you're careful of negatives. Make sure you're careful to reduce. And this does have to be a fraction. Number 6, you could have done 2/3 plus 1, which is 1 2/3. Don't really care for the mixed fractions, so I multiplied everything by 3. 2z plus 3z equals 2. Don't forget about this z right here. Giving me 5z equals 2, divide by 5, 2/5. Now number 7, this is a word problem. So it talks about a contractor who wants to use 34 feet of molding. It's cut into 3 pieces to trim the sides and top of a garage door. The long piece is 1.5 feet longer than 3 times the length of each shorter piece. So I have 3 pieces. I have 2 short pieces and I have a long piece. So short plus long gives me a total of 34 feet, because that's what he said I have. I have 34 feet to use. I'm letting x be the short pieces, so they're the same length, so x and x. The long piece, it says, is 1.5 feet longer than 3 times the length of the short pieces. So 3 times x plus 1.5 represents the long piece. So when I combine like terms, I get 5x plus 1.5 equals 34. Then subtract 1.5 and divide by 5. Now be careful, they didn't just ask you to find x. They said how long is each side. So each short piece is 6.5 feet. The long piece is 21 feet. To figure out that long piece, you have to plug it back into this expression right here, 3x plus 1.5. Alright, next one. Had some lengthy problems here. Number 8. Notice I took care of inside first. I did negative 3 times m minus 2, giving me negative 3m plus 6. You could have combined like terms and then distributed. I went ahead and distributed 6 minus 9m plus 18. Just make sure you do every term. I then combined like terms, got 24. Subtract that 24, divide by negative 9. On number 9, I distributed first, subtracted 3.76, and then divided by negative 1.6. Be very careful with fractions, with decimals. It's easy to do something silly, so make sure you're careful with the decimal points. Number 10, first thing I did was distribute 3x minus 15. Combine like terms on the same side you add them. Add 15 to both sides, then divide each side by 5. On number 11 here, first thing I did was distribute that negative 3, so negative 6w minus 3 here. Then I combined like terms. 9 and negative 3 were alike, giving me 6, and negative 6 plus negative 5 is negative 11. Subtract 6, divide by negative 11 on both sides. So 2/11, be careful of double negatives, it's always a positive, equals w. Number 12. Distribute first. 2c minus 8 plus 8 equals 3c plus 10. You have to distribute to both terms. Well, 8 plus negative 8 is 0. Additive inverse. So 2c equals 3c plus 10. I subtracted 3c, giving me negative 1c equals 10. Then divide by negative 1. c equals negative 10. On number 13, I combine like terms first. 10q minus 4 equals 10q minus 8. When I did that, I got rid of the q's here. They canceled out, giving me negative 4 equals negative 8. Because this is not true, this is no solution. Negative 4 does not equal negative 8. Now, if you had ended up with something like negative 4 equals negative 4, that is true, and you would say this is infinitely many solutions, or IMS, or all real numbers. Okay, but because this is not true, it's a no solution. Remember, this is the answer you need to put on your paper when solving. Don't just tell me negative 4 equals negative 8. That tells me nothing. I need the no solution. Number 14 kind of goes along with this one. So notice on number 14, we get 0 as an answer. 0 is an answer. I start by distributing, then I combine like terms. Negative 7t plus 4t is negative 3t. Get the t's together. Always do that step first so you don't do something silly. I still have a t. The t's did not cancel out. Now when I subtract the 21, yeah, those cancel and I end up with 0. But I can divide 0 by 6. I can give everybody 6 pieces of nothing. I can do that all day long. So t actually equals 0. That's a real answer. So be very careful not to confuse that with a no solution like number 13. Number 15, once again, distribute first. Be careful of decimals. They can get kind of hairy when you work with them. I subtracted 2.1d. Then I subtracted 17.28. Divide, I get 12. Be very careful of decimals, especially ones like 0.06. It's easy to forget that 0. Number 16 was a word problem. So let me pull that up real quick. Okay, it says a jewelry maker, right here, produces necklaces that sell for $85 each. The jewelry maker's costs include $35 in materials for each necklace, plus a fixed cost of $1,650. How many necklaces must the jeweler sell to break even? To break even means your profit and your expenses are equal. You make as much as you spend. So that's why I have up here expenses equal profit. My profit's pretty easy. It's $85, 85x. My expenses is $35 for each necklace, so I'm spending $35 for every necklace, plus $1,650, just a one-time fixed cost. So now I have my equation. I can solve it, and I get 33. But notice, I didn't just say x equals 33, I said 33 necklaces. I have to sell 33 necklaces to break even. Make sure you don't forget your units. Number 17 is a proportion. All you have to do is cross multiply. 15 times a equals 45 times 72, which is 3,240, divide by 15. Same thing here with 18 and 19. Cross multiply. b times 3.2 equals 9 times 12.8, divide by 3.2. Number 19, 0.5 times 15 equals 2.4 times c. Cross multiply and solve. Make sure you're giving me the exact answer. This decimal is exact. It would work. You can also give me a fraction there. All right, so that's number 19. Number 20. Now you'll notice on 20 and 21 especially, I put the parentheses around the sums and differences. Remember, I call those married couples. You got to keep them together. So when you cross multiply, you have to do 5 times the sum of d plus 3. 10 times the sum of 2d minus 3. Distribute. Subtract 5d from both sides is what I chose to do. Solve, and you end up with d equals 3. Same thing on 21. 2f times 14 is 28f. Then you have to do 7 times f minus 2. Distribute. Get the terms on the same side. Divide, and you get negative 2/3. Number 22. Once again, I put parentheses around those two sums and differences. Cross multiply, 4.5 times 0.5g minus 1, 3 times g plus 2. Distribute. Combine your terms on the same side. Add or subtract, and then divide. So negative 14 is what you should get on g. Be very careful, especially with adding and subtracting. It's easy to do silly things. All right, 23 was a word problem. So this one talks about the ratio of the weight on the moon to Earth. So you'll notice I actually wrote moon to earth there. I don't know if you can say this. So I wrote moon to earth. That way I know what my ratio is. It tells me my ratio is moon to earth, 1 to 6. Then it says, okay, well, if a person weighs 144 pounds, how much do they weigh on the moon? Well, that's the earth, 144 pounds. X goes on top. Then all you have to do is cross multiply and divide. So a person would weigh 24 pounds if they were on the moon. On 24, you'll notice this is also a word problem. It talks about a simple syrup for ice cream, and they tell you 2 cups of sugar for 2/3 cups of boiling water. How many cups of sugar are required for 2 cups of boiling water? Well, this is tricky because of all the cups. So I actually put cups of sugar, cups of water. So when I set this up, we're going to cross multiply. 2/3 times x. 2 times 2 is 4. Excuse me. So it would be 6 cups of sugar, if you want to be particular, for 2 cups of water. Alright, we're getting closer to being done. Number 25 through 28 are percent problems. So 25, remember, it's always is over of equals percent over 100. It's the general formula. So is over of. So I have 48 is 12% of what number? That's how I set it up. Cross multiply and solve. 26, what percent? Well, that's my x then. Of 16 goes on bottom. Is 20 goes on top. Cross multiply and solve. Don't forget your percent sign. Number 27, what number is? That's my x. 175%, there's percent, of 76. Now I should expect my x is going to be bigger than 76 because 175% is more than 100. 28, same thing here. I should expect a small number for x because 96 is smaller than 200. So what percent of 200 is 96? Set it up, cross multiply and solve. Now 29 can be very tricky if you're not careful. So it says the cost of it for a party, for a dinner for a party, of 8 people is $139.50. So the first thing they want us to do, they say it's for large groups of people they charge 18% gratuity, and it's added to the cost of the dinner after a 6% sales tax. So the first thing I did is I found out how much it was going to cost for sales tax. So $139.50 times 6%, remember it's 0.06, is $8.37. You could use a proportion for this, but it might be a little harder that way. So then I took $139.50 and added these two numbers here, $139.50 and $8.37, which gave me $147.87. I then multiplied that by that 18% gratuity, which gave me about $26.62. So that's how much I would pay as a tip. To get my grand total, I took this $147 and this tip, because this right here included the tax, and got $174.49. Alright, number 30 and 31 we're solving for y. So on 30, start by distributing 1/3 x minus 3, then add 7. Remember, this is called point slope form. We'll talk about that in chapter 5 quite a bit. Over here, you could have subtracted 4x and added 8, and then divided by -6. But if you're thinking, you could just as easily have added 6y over, and then just divided everything by 6. So it works either way. This is kind of a shortcut if you're paying attention, and that would be the answer for 31. All right, last two. 32. They want us to solve that formula for h. So h is right here. So the first thing I did was subtract 2 pi r squared. Then, giving me s minus 2 pi r squared, I divided by 2 pi r. Now you guys know I like you to divide each term because this one over here simplifies. So s over 2 pi r stays the same, but right here, when I divide, 2 divided by 2 is 1, pi divided by pi is 1, and r squared just means r times r. You don't have to have the r squared there. So that one of those r's cancels out as well. So that's where that r came from. Then on 33 it says, okay, now use that formula, and what if the surface area is 75.36 inches and the radius is 2 inches? So you'll notice I plugged the 2 in for my r and the 73.36 in for my surface area. And then I use the calculator. They tell